Welcome to the deep dive. We take the sources you give us and, well, we dive deep to pull out the core knowledge.
That's the goal.
And today we're looking into a company called Sanfoods Co., Ltd., and a food maybe you haven't thought too much about, konjac.
Right. It might seem pretty simple on the surface.
Exactly. We've got this audio explanation about their business, and our mission, really, is to unpack Sanfoods and this surprisingly interesting ingredient, konjac. Give you a shortcut to understanding why this, like, ancient Japanese food is suddenly popping up everywhere.
Yeah, it's a fascinating blend of, very old traditions meeting very new science.
Yeah.
You might know konjac as like shirataki noodles, maybe,
Maybe, yeah, a diet food.
but the source material goes way beyond that, much deeper.
Okay, let's get into it. So konjac, it's got this super long history in Japan, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the first things that jumps out. It's not some new fad. It's traditional. Been eaten as a health food in Japan for, get this, over 1,500 years.
1,500 years. Wow, that's history.
Definitely not a trend.
And what it's actually made of is, well, incredibly simple. Almost feels revolutionary now, doesn't it?
It does. The source practically calls it a dream product.
Yeah.
It's almost entirely dietary fiber. So you're looking at basically 0 calories.
0.
Yeah. 0 carbs, 0 sugars. It's essentially just fiber and water, really.
Okay, so if it's been around for millennia and it's basically calorie-free fiber, why wasn't it always, hyped up as a superfood?
Well, that's where the historical context comes in, according to the source. Back when getting enough calories, enough nutrition was the main struggle. Konjac wasn't seen as that valuable. There was an old saying, something like, neither poison nor medicine. It filled you up, sure, but didn't give you energy.
Right. It didn't provide the calories people desperately needed then.
Exactly. But now, fast forward to today, this Hoshoku no Jidai, the age of, well, too much food.
Suddenly those exact same qualities, no calories, lots of fiber, are precisely what people are looking for.
You got it. In a world worried about excess calories, needing more fiber, konjac fits perfectly with modern health aims. It's gone from kind of overlooked to really relevant.
And traditionally, the known benefits were tied to that, right? Helping with weight management, low calories, and easing constipation because of the fiber.
Those are the classic uses, yeah. The ones people have known about for a long time. But that's really just scratching the surface.
Okay, which brings us neatly to Sanfoods. They've clearly bet big on konjac for a long, long time.
Oh, definitely. The source highlights their 90-year history. 90 years focused just on konjac production.
That's dedication. It's their main thing.
It really is.
And the scale of production. We're not talking about a small artisan shop here, especially for their konjac shirataki.
No, not at all. The figure mentioned is pretty mind-boggling. 100,000 cho produced every single day.
Joe, I have no idea what that unit means in practice. How big is that?
Yeah, it's not common outside Japan. But the source gives a great visual. If you laid those 100,000 cho of shirataki end to end, they'd stretch 30 kilometers.
30 kilometers of konjac noodles every day.
Every day. Wow.
Okay.
Producing that much? You'd assume safety and quality control must be a massive operation.
And that's a huge point they stress. Their commitment to anshin de ansin, safety and security. They were apparently one of the first in Japan to get FSSC 22000 certification.
FSSC 22000, and the source describes that as
Basically the world's highest standard for food safety management. So they're not just churning it out. They're aiming for, like, the absolute peak of safety protocols.
And they have a goal that reflects that focus.
Yeah, their stated aim is to make those 100,000 cho daily with 0 complaints. 0.
That says a lot about their approach, that level of ambition.
It really does. Diligence is key there.
Now, this is where I thought it got really interesting, their core philosophy. It seems to drive everything they do.
Absolutely. The source calls it their Atara-ein philosophy.
Atara-ein.
Yeah, it means something like constantly trying to create things that make people go, oh, wouldn't it be nice if that existed? I like that. Wouldn't it be nice if... It's about seeing a need or even just a desire and making it happen. So how does that apply to, humble konjac?
Well, the source gives a couple of really good examples. One is functional foods.
Okay.
They've actually developed a konjac product designed specifically to help reduce stress and improve sleep quality.
Konjac for sleep and stress.
Yeah.
That's way beyond just fiber, isn't it?
Totally. And the source claims Sanfoods is the only company globally making this particular type of functional konjac.
The only one. That's quite a claim. What's another Atara-ein innovation?
It tackles a basic part of how konjac is usually made. Traditionally, you need calcium hydroxide, sort of a coagulant, to get konjac to set.
Right, that's standard.
Well, Sanfoods apparently developed the world's first additive-free konjac. No calcium hydroxide needed.
Whoa, hold on. Additive-free konjac. How'd they manage that? That sounds like a pretty big deal, technically.
The source doesn't detail the how, but emphasizes the achievement. It's described as a world first, and it's apparently getting attention internationally.
I bet. Opens up possibilities for people who want cleaner labels, maybe different textures. So speaking of new possibilities, beyond the diet and digestion stuff, what other newer things are scientists finding out about konjac? The source mentions some recent discoveries.
Yeah, this is where the story takes another unexpected turn. The diet and fiber stuff is known, right? But recent research, it's uncovering other components.
Like what?
Well, one major finding is that konjac contains high levels of ceramide.
Ceramide. Wait, like in skin cream? For
Yes,
moisture.
exactly, that's the ceramide. Well known for skin benefits, hydration, barrier function, that sort of thing.
Okay, so konjac is good for your skin too. Interesting.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
But the source points to research that's even more,
Yeah.
well, groundbreaking.
Don't leave me hanging.
Okay, so there are now academic papers suggesting that the ceramide in konjac might be highly effective in helping to prevent Alzheimer's disease.
Alzheimer's. Seriously, from konjac ceramide.
That's what the emerging research suggests. It's still early days, academic papers, but the potential link is huge.
Huge is an understatement. That completely reframes konjac, doesn't it? From just a diet food to something with potentially serious therapeutic value against a massive health issue.
It absolutely does. It shines a whole new light on it.
Yeah.
And these kinds of discoveries, this is why konjac is probably going to get a lot more attention going forward.
No kidding. Okay, the source also mentioned a traditional Japanese idea about konjac. Otsuchin no sunoroshi, what's that about?
Ah, right. It translates roughly as washing down sand from the stomach.
Yeah.
Or maybe clearing grit from the stomach.
Yeah.
It's a traditional way people thought about its cleansing effect.
A cleansing effect. How does that actually work, according to the source?
It comes back to that incredible dietary fiber content. It basically acts like a sort of internal broom or sponge,
Okay.
helping to absorb and then carry out certain unwanted things from your system.
Unwanted things like?
The source specifically calls out heavy metals. It suggests konjac fiber can bind to them and help your body expel them.
Heavy metals. That's a significant detox claim. Did they give an example of how it absorbs things?
Yeah, a simple one. Imagine you put konjac into a really salty super stew.
Okay.
The konjac will actually absorb some of that excess salt. And since your body doesn't digest the konjac fiber itself,
It just passes through, taking the salt with it.
exactly, the konjac fiber goes out and it takes the absorbed salt out too.
So it's like a selective sponge for certain things you don't want.
That's a good way to put it. It helps remove, as the source says, unnecessary things like those heavy metals, excess salt.
Right. But important question, does it grab everything? Like, does it pull out carbs or sugars you've eaten?
Ah, good point. The source is clear on that.
No.
No, it doesn't absorb and remove macronutrients like carbs or sugars in that same way. The focus of this detox effect described is more on things like heavy metals and excess salt.
Okay, that distinction's important. So it's a targeted internal cleanup crew, in a way.
Sort of, yeah, based on that traditional understanding and the fibrous properties.
Fascinating. Okay, one last bit the source covered was how Sanfoods deals with selling konjac globally. They hit a snag in the U.S. market.
They did. And it shows how they apply that Atara Ein thinking to practical problems. The issue was distribution. In the U.S., standard konjac shirataki often needs refrigeration to be distributed.
Unlike in Japan, where sometimes it's shelf-stable.
Right. And needing refrigeration, well, that makes widespread distribution much harder, more expensive, a big logistical barrier.
So what did Sanfoods do?
They adapted. They quickly set up retort packaging lines.
Retort packaging. That's like the pouches you can keep in the cupboard, heat-sealed and sterilized.
Exactly that. By using retort pouches, they made their konjac shirataki shelf-stable at room temperature, making it feasible for the U.S. market.
Ah, so they saw the problem. Wouldn't it be nice if this could be stored at room temp? And they made it happen.
Precisely. Another example of their philosophy in action. Find the barrier, create the solution.
Wow. Okay, so let's just recap quickly. We've gone from konjac's 1,500-year history as this simple fibrous food
To its modern relevance as a zero-calorie, high-fiber option.
to Sanfoods' massive scale, their intense focus on safety with FSSC 22000.
Their whole Atara Ein innovation drive, leading to things like functional konjac for stress and sleep, and that world-first additive-free version.
And then these frankly surprising discoveries about ceramide foreskin and the really potentially huge link to Alzheimer's prevention.
Plus that traditional stomach washing detox idea,
Yeah.
clearing out heavy metals and salt.
And finally seeing how they adapt, like with the retort packaging for the US. It's quite a story.
It really is. We've definitely pulled out the key insights from that source material on Sanfoods and, the unexpected depth of konjac.
But for you listening, what's the takeaway? I think this dive into Sanfoods and konjac really shows how sometimes ancient traditions, things we might overlook, when you combine them with modern science and that kind of relentless innovation,
Yeah.
they can hold surprising answers.
Yeah, unexpected potential.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How many other traditional foods or practices are out there just waiting for a closer look? Things that might hold keys to modern health problems if only we applied that same curiosity and scientific rigor. Something to chew on, maybe.
Definitely food for thought. Reconsidering the familiar